Welcome back to Garden Talk, brought to you by the Penn State Erie County Extension Master Gardeners. I'm your co-host for today, Mike Bailey, along with Ellen DePlacido. Ellen, welcome to another growing season.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, it's been a challenging winter, but it's going to be it's going to be a nice spring.
All is good.
First of all, I want to thank Brian Silvas for allowing us to do this again. I think this is about the fifth year. Okay, we've done these recordings, and Brian has been gracious enough to air them on channel 98.9 there down there in Corry, so I appreciate that. The other thing I want to say is that we're down at a new studio now. Mm-hmm. We are working at the CAM studio here in downtown Erie, and the nice thing about it is we have a fellow master gardener who's helping us, Rick Godswa, who is doing some of the technical components. That's going to really help. So how about we jump right in, Ellen?
Okay.
What are we going to talk about today?
We want to start talking about starting seeds indoors.
Okay. Well, why do you want to do that anyways?
Well,
because that's always a red flag for me.
I know. I mean, I do it. I enjoy doing it, but there are other good reasons why. You might want a variety of different plants that you can't really find the transplants in various garden centers. So you can always find seeds. So you might be able to do more variety with the seeds. And a lot of folks like to, and we like to do this too, is try to find some hybrids that are more disease resistant so that you don't have as many problems with your plants that you might otherwise. And also, it's fun to plant heirlooms, and it's a good idea to try to start those with some seeds also.
Okay, yeah, very good,
Mm-hmm.
good points.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just give you a little bit of our listeners a little bit of especially our new gardeners, some verbiage that we might be talking about. When we talk about transplants, we're really talking about seeds that are seedlings that are started indoors.
That's
and then
right.
moved
Mm-hmm.
to the outside garden.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking about direct seeding, we're talking about placing the seeds directly in the gardens, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and having them grow and bypassing that inside growing step.
Mm-hmm.
But this works better with some plants than others, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. If you're a new gardener, if you're going to be new at starting seeds indoors, what I would encourage you to do is to stick with some of the basics.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the easier things to raise as transplants include tomatoes, peppers,
Mm-hmm.
eggplants, and herbs.
Right. Glad you didn't forget the herbs.
Yeah, thank you. You reminded me last time. Yes. So those are the easy things and the things that transplant well.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other things like beans and corns, which are kind of at the other end of the extreme, that really don't do well at all.
Right.
But we always encourage people to, direct seed as many things as they can because they avoid what we call transplant shock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
anytime you grow plants on the inside and you move them to the outside, okay, there's always a little bit of an adjustment period, isn't there, Ellen?
Yes, and we'll talk about that later too. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so, those are things to kind of keep in mind.
Right.
And our goal here is what, Ellen? When we talk about starting seeds indoors.
Be successful.
Well, to be successful, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways of doing it. And
Right.
some of
We want to tell you about the components that you really need to be looking out for when you start these seeds inside.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because the idea is to grow good, healthy
plants.
transplants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't want to go through all of this effort and then have some straggly looking plants
Right.
that aren't very healthy to place in your garden. Then they're really going to go through a lot of
Right.
challenges adjusting to that whole thing.
And
So,
I mean, it takes a little time and effort, but it's fun. It's enjoyable
yeah.
to do.
So,
Mhm.
but how about we touch really briefly, Ellen,
Okay.
on the four different components that we're going to talk about that are really important when it comes to starting seeds on the inside.
Okay.
What are those four components?
Okay, the first one is the amount of lighting that you have because you might need some supplemental lighting when you're doing this.
Right.
Mhm. Or
She's being generous.
You
She's
do
being
need supplemental lighting.
Thank you.
Trust me.
Okay.
I tried it without.
Okay. You also need a good growing medium,
Right,
don't you?
not dirt,
Yeah,
as we might call it.
Okay.
You don't take soil out of your garden and try to start seeds in that inside.
And you're also going to have to control the temperature a little bit too,
Mm-hmm.
because some
It's got to be warm.
Yeah,
Yes.
seeds like to seeds
They're babies.
like a nice warm bed to
Right.
start growing in.
Right.
And then we also the last thing is that we're going to be concerned about is moisture.
It's the moisture. Make
Yeah.
sure that it's not too moist, but you don't want those seedlings to dry out or your seeds to dry out
Right.
either.
Yeah. So Ellen and I work with a lot of new gardeners at
Mm-hmm.
a couple of the gardens that we have up here in Erie. And I think they all get a very good appreciation of gardening if we do a lot of direct seeding. So we try to do that with all of our, our zucchini and our cucumbers and our summer squashes and our winter squashes and our pumpkins and certainly peas and beans and corn and root crops.
The root crops, yeah. I wouldn't try starting those seeds inside.
Yeah. Don't try to start
Not
beets.
really any reason to.
Yeah, beets and carrots. No,
Yeah.
they do very well. Okay, started outside, directly seeded into the garden. So make it easy on yourself. Okay, focus on the things that you're going to be able to do well, which is the tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, and herbs. Those are your best things, especially if you're new at this. Once you get a little bit of experience under your belt, you can venture into some of the other things, but please start with something that's going to be successful. Ellen, I think we're done for today.
All right.
We've used our time, so how about we move on to the next session, okay?
Okay, good enough.
Thanks,
you now.
Mike. Bye-bye.